Welcome to Sports Beat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Monday, September 1st, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Today we begin the first of 3 straight days previewing college football, and we start with the Kansas Jayhawks, who open the season on Friday night at home against South Dakota. It's been a rough go for KU for, about a half a generation. But hope springs eternal under new coach Lance Leipold, who arrived from Buffalo in April. That means he didn't have a spring practice to work with the Jayhawks. He's kept the identity of his starting quarterback a secret. There are 3 candidates. Beat writer Jesse Newell is here to break down the position and preview KU. After a break, you'll hear from Leipold from his meeting with reporters this week. So let's get started talking Kansas football. I love your story, Jesse, about the quarterbacks at Kansas that detailed the competitions and the thoughts of coaches going into the season that you had at the bottom of the story. Is it 5 of the last 6 years we went into game week at Kansas not knowing who the starting quarterback was going to be?
Yeah, you would think just randomly that wouldn't happen. Course, you're stretching over the course of 3 different coaches, and I don't know what it is in the water in Lawrence, but it just makes it so that every single year going into game week, nobody knows who the starting quarterback is going to be. And sometimes that includes the coaching staff as well. But the scenario is actually a little bit different, to give Lance Leipold and his staff a little bit of leeway where they weren't here for spring ball. So they couldn't evaluate those guys then, wanted to give everybody a fresh slate. And so the combination between Jason Bean, Jalen Daniels, and Miles Kendrick sort of started. It didn't spill over into the fall practices. It started in the fall practices. So they're trying to implement the offense, get it going, and then also evaluate the quarterbacks at the same time. A very difficult thing to do. And I'm sure they would love for some guy to emerge. The problem for them is just that very clear-cut choice has not come about just yet. So we'll see what Kansas does coming up against South Dakota on Friday, but it does very much resemble a lot of things in the past, which is uncertainty at the quarterback position for Kansas. And as you said, 5 of the last 6 years to not know that guy going into game week, that is something that is pretty crazy if you think about it.
Can you see all 3 getting snaps on Friday?
No, actually, that is something a little bit different from the past. Lance Leipold played the position. So he's talked about this a little bit and kind of said that he understands what it's like when you play quarterback and you sort of feel like you're looking over your shoulder and the coach might be looking to the next guy, that sort of thing. He likes to play a guy and keep him in there and give him a long leash. And, he's not going to promise anything. When he's asked this question a lot, he says, hey, I'm not going to promise to not play 2 quarterbacks just in case something happens or injury or whatever the game flow might be. But no, I think he wants to put a guy out there and leave him there for a while. And he was asked directly a week ago whether he had planned on rotating quarterbacks. And he said that discussion has not been had. So this is sort of tricky for Kansas because not only are they wanting to get a guy to be the starter, but they're kind of trying to decide a guy to be the starter to also give a little bit of wiggle room so that they can make some mistakes and still feel like they're not going to be pulled out of the game. So, that's one that's probably a little bit different from some of the coaches in the past. Les Miles rotated his quarterbacks in week 1. Of the game last year. David Beatty was one who always liked to rotate his quarterbacks throughout the game and played different ones. It should be different this year just based off the comments that Lance Leipold has said and him saying, at least publicly, that he doesn't like to have guys go in and out because he knows how difficult the quarterback position is to play without having those mind games in your head.
Yeah, Kendrick is the one with the experience, right? Started, was it 7 games a year ago? Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure he's the prototypical Lance Leipold quarterback, but Leipold proved he wins with different style quarterbacks, hasn't he?
Yeah, they try to play up their pieces. You see him last year, they led the nation in rushing yards per carry. There were years before where they threw it all around the ballpark and, were top in the MAC and passing yardage. So they try to be versatile. They try to be they try to play up to the skills and the advantage of their particular players, which also sort of complicates these things too. You mentioned Miles Kendrick. So, let's just go over all 3 of these guys real quickly. Miles Kendrick won the Workout Warrior Award over the summer from the new weight coach for being a leader. He led some of the player-led workouts with an offense that he doesn't know, completely. So smart kid, will be a coach someday, all those sorts of things. His limitations are just the physical tools. He's listed at 5'10". He's probably really shorter than me, and I'm 5'8", 5'9". So 5'10" is probably too generous. He's not that fast, and he lacks arm strength. And honestly, he lacks accuracy too. And that's why, when you're people talking about him being potentially a coach someday, that's sometimes what lines up with a coach is somebody who knows the game, studies their butt off, knows their reads, knows what they should be doing, but just hasn't been able to do it. I mean, it kind of describes Bill Self, doesn't it? I know he had some success in college, but hey, if you get kicked out of your playing career quick enough, then you become a coach quicker and you kind of, ascend in that sort of way. Jalen Daniels, really super young, played a lot of last year when he was 17, has a cannon for an arm, can run, but has a little bit of PTSD from last year where KU averaged 5.2 sacks allowed per game. Just got happy feet in the pocket, really young in his development. So tough to know with him, and been some whispers of, him being banged up a little bit in practices too. So who knows? But again, he has the tools to be able to make a run at this position. And then Jalen Bean, he's the transfer from North Texas, started a few games for them last year, but he just has a can't miss unbelievable quality, which is his speed. He's a former track star. And so if KU is thinking about doing some run game with its quarterback and being, kind of tricky in that sort of way, then Jason Bean has a skill that you just can't miss. I mean, he's one of the fastest guys on the team. But as far as they've been trying to get him to speak up, be more of a leader to learn the offense. He only got here in the summer, so it's been a catch-up period for him. So again, I can make a case for all those guys, and I can make a case against all those guys. I think that's why it's been tricky for KU's coaching staff. I'm sure they would love to have somebody emerge by now, but now you're kind of just sort of asking philosophical questions, aren't you? I mean, do you want to call a play and know it's going to get called correctly? Then you go with Miles Kendrick. If you want a guy who does something that nobody else on the field does at a quarterback position, you take Jason Bean. And if you want a guy who's been in there some and has kind of both of the same tools, but is a little bit unproven and might not be fully developed this time, you take Jalen Daniels. But I think, unfortunately for them, this thing has gone down to last week. And so that means that nobody has clearly emerged, at least at this point in time.
How about weapons around the quarterback? Obviously that, wide receivers, offensive line, running backs, tight ends can help a quarterback look good. What does KU have that can help a quarterback look good?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be blunt about this. I mean, I know this is preseason and optimism time, so you want to say good things about everybody, but it's just, it's not the case. If we're talking about those position groups, I just said KU's offensive line allowed 5.2 sacks per game last year. It's the highest mark I can find in Division I history. I can't find a higher number than that. So obviously they're starting from a bad point, but Scott Fuchs, the new offensive line coach, I've heard really glowing things about him. They have more depth this year. They have a lot of guys who were starters last year who are kind of projected to be backups this year. So, I mean, that says something for the program that maybe they have more bodies in. They brought in Mike Nowitzki, a center from Buffalo. He was ranked, I think, the 4th best center in the nation by Pro Football Focus. So a lot's going to be on his shoulders. And then they brought in Colin Grunhard, who I'm going to have a story about at the Kansas City Star. A local kid, son of Tim. Everybody knows the former chief. He's going to be starting at right guard. He's been a center for most of his life, but he's a student of the game. And with KU, how they run these primarily wide zone schemes where they try to basically get guys on the run, that allows himself to play smaller linemen if you want to. And so Colin Grunhard, with his knowledge, I think has kind of jumped up the depth chart, should be able to help them out there. Look at receivers. That's a big question mark. They have Kwame Lassiter, who's the leading receiver from a year ago. Again, we talk about sons of former NFL guys. There you go. Kwame Lassiter, the son of former KU player Kwame Lassiter, who played in the NFL, played defensive back and safety. But he's the number one guy. Behind him, there's a lot of question marks, honestly. They've got Trevor Wilson from Buffalo, who's kind of a speed threat. Stephon Robinson, LJ Arnold, who are question marks from last year, didn't get much playing time. A guy like Luke Grimm, who kind of came on the scene. But again, they have a lot of questions there. Running back is interesting because they have Velton Gardner, their leading rush from last year, who should be good. Devin Neal is their top recruit coming in, 4 stars from Lawrence High, just turned 18, but he's impressed guys in practice. And then Amari Pesek-Hickson, he's a local kid who also should be able to get some carries if he's healthy in there as well. Again, they've had some problem with injuries and guys being in and out of the rotation. So we'll see how they start out with. But they feel probably good about that group if they can keep them healthy, but they get 1 or 2 injuries there and they're probably getting pretty light in a hurry. Tight ends, they should feel good about. Trevor Cardell, I wrote about him as one of the surprises this year. He's a baseball player who plays both sports, but he's really impressed. He probably will get the start, I would think, on Friday. Mason Fairchild has been one of the guys in the locker room, has led workouts, and as a veteran by now, he's reshaped his body. So he should get a lot of snaps. And then Will Huggins is just a physical freak. He's a local kid as well, who should, if they want to stretch the field with the vertical passing game, he's the one to be able to do it. So should feel good about their tight ends. Again, they have a big role with the running game and everything, but that's kind of what's around that quarterback position. But it's tough for Kansas because, again, you're installing a new scheme, and already out of those positions, you can ask that question, which of those is not the worst unit in the Big 12? And you're probably not saying that many of those are. So KU's in a tough position to start this season, but that's why they've got new coaching staff, new optimism, and they're going to see how far that can take them in this 2021 season, and perhaps more importantly, and then in 2022 and 2023 as well.
How about just a quick word on the defense?
Yeah, I think the defensive line might be the strength of the team. They're really happy with what Kyron Johnson has done. Wrote about him earlier this summer. He's kind of a physical freak. He's tests super well. He gets a really quick burst, and they've moved him. He's moved all around for KU football in years past, but they've just moved him strictly to defensive end, put a hand on the ground, go rush the quarterback. So I think they have high hopes for him. He's on the NFL radars because of some of his testables, but he might be one of those guys that could make a big leap with the new coaching staff and just kind of new visions for him. Malcolm Lee's on the other side. He should be a really good player in his own right. He's reshaped his body as well. But I think those two guys, they also brought Eddie Wilson from Buffalo, who should be kind of an anchor in the middle. And they've got Sam Burt coming back for a super senior season. So I think they feel good about their defensive line and have a few bodies they can rotate in there. Linebackers, huge question mark. That was probably, it might've been the worst statistic or the worst positional unit in the Big 12 of anybody. I mean, they really, really, really struggled at linebacker last year. And so we'll see what they've got this year. A guy like Gavin Potter, again, maybe kind of in the Kyron Johnson mold. He's a guy that was a highly rated recruit. Just has sort of struggled to have that production match up with what he's done in the past. But, we'll see with that. And then, they've got Rich Miller from Buffalo. He can play all three linebacker positions, has kind of been a leader type for them and knows what he's doing out there. But still question marks for that position, no doubt. But, some hope. A guy like Taiwan Berryhill played a few snaps last year before getting injured. They really like him. And so we'll see what happens. Secondary, they should love their safeties if they stay healthy. Again, I'm going to keep saying if they stay healthy, but Kenny Logan's a team leader, has a special relationship with Lance Leipold. They've been buddies ever since Lance Leipold took the job. And then Ricky Thomas is a capable backup. OJ Burrows is from IMG Academy. He's a true freshman. I predicted he'd lead the team in interceptions. He was catching everything at the open practice the other day. So he seems to have a guy for 5'10", just has all sorts of instincts and skills, ball skills, should be able to use those on the field. At cornerback, it's a question mark. They are super, super, super young there, but Deuce Mayberry has emerged. He was a true freshman last year. He's the younger brother of Kyle Mayberry, who played for Kansas for a while, and they have high hopes for him. And then a guy like Romello Dotson, who really emerged in this fall, kind of out of nowhere. He should be the starter on the other side. They've got other bodies there that they can throw into the mix, but it should be scary at cornerback because anybody knows you throw freshmen and true sophomores into the mix there and hope that they can completely carry the load in a conference like the Big 12, you're going to be at least worried through the first few games about how that production is going to hold up. So I'd say defensive line is might be the biggest strength of the entire team, but the back end, some question marks. The safety they should feel good about, but like everything else, they got to stay healthy and they got to hope for good health throughout this season.
Difficult to imagine a coach coming into a tougher situation than Lance Leipold is at Kansas, just given the what's returning, where the program is, his late start, and how about he's playing an FCS team in the opener, but one that played 4 games in February and March. It's so unusual, that they're going to play a program that's already played games in 2021. We're going to hear from Lance Leipold after we take a break, but before we do, Jesse, how about just some final thoughts on KU? What the expectation for the opener? Let's not go past that, but I'm sure it would be a major disappointment if Kansas did not win the game, but Kansas has lost openers to FCS programs before, and they have disappointed, obviously, in the past. What do fans need to see from Kansas to know that it's at least on the track to move in the right direction?
Yeah, it's tough, Blair. I'm thinking of Al Davis here, the just win baby. I mean, that's got to be it for that first game. You mentioned the losses previously. Turner-Gill, his first game, lost to North Dakota State. Dave Beatty, his first game, a loss to South Dakota State. Even 3 years later, when KU won 3 games, which ties for the highest mark they've had since 2009, KU opened with a loss to Nicholls State at home. So losing the FCS teams I mean, I've heard fans out there saying, oh, just going to, well, nothing's easy. Nothing's easy with Kansas football, not in a coach's opener. I know he's undefeated at Kansas right now, but I mean, Lance Leipold, it's tough right now. And I likened it in one of my stories. You talked about what can you see from this team? How do you measure them? And this game is just really tough because I made the example, if all your buddies had 2 weeks to study for the final, and then you get a call at 6 a.m. and say, hey, the final's at noon, and all your buddies get an A on the test and you get the F. I mean, does that say what you are as a student? It doesn't really say what you are as a student, right? It's kind of an unfair judge because everybody else had all this time to prepare and you were kind of thrown in the mix. And so I guess what I'm saying here is Lance Leipold and the staff could be great coaches. I mean, they could do great things at Kansas. They could be amazing with player development. They could be great with building a game plan. And it might not all look very good against South Dakota just because of the circumstances that were thrown at them at this late stage in the process. So I don't mean to totally tamp down expectations for Kansas. I think the reality of this is it's a very difficult thing to walk into. And so I even mentioned this in my predictions. I said KU going 1-11 this year. I had them beating South Dakota, but losing the rest of the games of the season. I know some people thought that was a little bit pessimistic, but I think next year there could definitely be expectations because they're going to be a more veteran team. They're going to have their offense and defense in, and they're going to have a whole spring ball. 2023, you might be able to talk about bowl game eligibility because, again, you have a super veteran team. You're hitting up on the max on 85 scholarships. They've been here 2 years, all those sorts of things. So I could see this thing turning up very quickly, but I don't think it's completely fair to say 2021 is when you have to see that immediately happen. So listen, this is not to say, hey, these guys get a free pass, hey, they get 4 or 5 years to completely do whatever they want to do. I mean, that's not what I'm saying here at all. I'm just saying, I think you could see if this is a really good coaching staff, you'll see it in year 2 and you'll see it in year 3. And that's when the expectations kind of start to take hold. Year 1, it's just a little bit tougher because of when they took over.
And who knows what the conference will look like by then. All right, good stuff, Jesse. Like I said, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, you'll hear Kansas football coach Lance Leipold, his entire press conference from Monday, game week prep for South Dakota. Thanks, Jesse. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
How close are you to naming a starting quarterback right now?
Closer than we were the last time we talked. Okay, we're getting there, and whether or not we'll announce it publicly before kickoff is still to be determined. But it's working that direction.
How good do you feel about that position overall heading into this first game?
I feel good about it. Again, the competition's been excellent. Again, we're still striving for consistency, understanding, and leadership, and a lot of different things that are going to be there. And I'm confident with all three of those guys if when they're on the field.
I want to ask you, injury-wise, how are you guys doing headed into the opener?
It's a question. We're doing okay. You'd like to be better in spots. I will say, as always, through my head coaching career, on game week, the injury report seems to shrink quite a bit. So it did again this week. So we'll see where it is fully available. And as we, tomorrow's a big day for that for us. To be quite honest, is my philosophy has been that you need to practice during the work days. You got to get one of those in to have some type of availability. But we always look at the role of the player and how much work they've had throughout time. So, but all in all, pretty decent.
Is there anyone out that you were hoping to be counting on?
That's probably not as of like going into game planning and stuff. I don't think that's overly changed at this time.
So I wanted to ask you about your young secondary, especially on the two deep. You have, a few freshmen in there. What's your comfort level with that, and what have those guys done to impress you so far?
Yeah, their athleticism and their really their overall competitive nature on the field, but as it's pretty well in print, they're young, and with that, being experienced and growing pains can happen. But the whole secondary, corner wise, I think Chevis Jackson's done an excellent job with those guys, not just on the field, but mentoring them off the field. We continue to work with that whole group about being the complete player and what they need to do to prepare. The athleticism obviously is there that brought them here. And then it's all the other things of studying and preparation, take care of themselves, all those little things. And I think they've embraced that very well.
Talking to Scott Fuchs, he mentioned that on the offensive line, it's not just 5 guys who play well, but 5 guys who play well together. I was curious what you've seen in that regard, and do you feel like you have 5 that play well together?
Yeah, that's something that I guess will be truly evaluated across the board in this program on Friday night as we start. And, that's the one thing is when the lights go on and the ball's kicked off, we're going to really get the true baseline of where we're at and what we've done in our time here and where we have to go. But, yeah, offensive line, because, again, whether it be really any time you offer, communication is key. And yeah, there's 5, but they got to think like one. And be on the same page and identification and getting the feel of when working together, who's working off, and all the different things that go along with that. And that's why Scott alludes to that, and it's so important.
And then just since I know it is your favorite category, like Benton said, with the quarterbacks, from where you started camp to where you are now, is this about where you expected to be or hoped, or is it maybe a header behind that mark?
We'll have a lot of fun this year, right? So I'll just say that's 1B. Maybe 1A is talking about injuries, so you guys hit both right away, okay? But, I've really tried to come in with clearly an open mind of what to expect. I've kind of gone through these before and to try to give everyone what can be the, there's so much to look at, and then we talk as a staff and stuff, but it's like, okay, who's throwing the ball? Just like I said, okay, who was working with who at that moment and who are they going against at that time? But, I think I'm, satisfied where it's at right now. For a guy who's never really satisfied. And so as we're always going to keep pushing. So I guess I didn't have, it needs to be here at this moment for us to feel like we're really good going into game 1. And I think, again, when the quarterback becomes live, and I think across the country, nobody's really making their quarterback live during that. There's a difference. And when it is, you really get to see what happens. I think I'll probably answer that a lot better next week. And feel free to ask it again, and we'll, and I can probably give you a little bit more where we're at.
Hey, Lance, what have you seen from Trevor Cardell at tight end?
Boy, when I met Trevor and everything, and he's on the baseball team here and things like that, and trying to work out, with the conversations of, kind of inheriting a situation with a 2-sport athlete, and because we heard a lot of good things about him and tried to balance that out. That was the first kind of, way we went about it. I thought he handled it well. He had an excellent summer, but he's very athletic. I'm really impressed with him. I know Andy Kolnicki is as well. Not just being a receiving tight end, he's embraced what we're asking our tight ends to do. He's a guy that can motion around and do some things, and he's going to be utilized a lot this season, and looking forward to really seeing him get that first action on Friday. But I've been very pleased. I think, you look at him and Mason Fairchild, I know Andy's very pleased where the depth of that position is. I think we have another young tight end, Will Huggins, who's a big, tall body that will continue to add depth to that position. And then we got some other guys there that are more fullback type bodies, but can fill in the roles of what we've been doing offensively these last few years, and all will have chances to contribute in different ways. So collectively, that's a group that we'll continue to lean on. But I think he keeps working right. Trevor's got a bright future.
Lance, you talk about that depth. I was curious if going into game one, do you have a script? Do you have a number of guys you want to see play or get action, or do you just, is that a game flow thing, or how does that work?
It's a game flow rotational thing based on depth. I lean and trust on our coaches a lot based on rotations. As I've said from the start, is through competition you earn and what you show in practice, and hopefully there's close gaps between that. We want to keep guys fresh. We want to be able to play 4 quarters, but we're going to do what we have to do to win a football game and put ourselves in the best position. And playing a team like South Dakota, who played in the spring, as experienced as they are, and players they have returning, we've got to make sure that it's not just fully scripted that this is what's going to take place no matter what. Okay, we've got to go out and do what we can to get ourselves off on the right foot here.
It's a little bit similar to that, but kind of different. I mean, what do you expect from game one? Are you looking for a clean game? Are you looking for improvement throughout? Are you looking for a tone setter for the season? What do you want from game one?
All the above, I guess. If you could have it, it's right. I guess there's still unknowns. Obviously to see how guys produce in game situations, how we handle adversity, how we handle success, all the things. I want to see us playing hard and straining and give great effort, and no matter what the score is, and is that we're going to compete hard no matter who's on the field. And those are kind of all the things that we've been trying to instill from the summer all the way through, we're going to continue to do. And now you get to see it in front of people and really in live football.
Coach, you guys are just taking obviously the very first steps in what will hopefully be a long journey, a lot of work ahead. But now that game week is here, could you characterize what you've been through in the past month? Has it been stressful, fun? What are you coming at? What's the experience been?
Honestly, like I said, I think last week, it's really not about what I'm feeling. To me, it's been a normal camp and trying to do, but there's just a lot more to it, obviously, with short time with these guys and as a staff putting things together. So it's been unique. It's been unique for the players too, and some of the things that we've changed how practices were run, changed the schedule of the day, changed how we do things, and I've really been appreciative of the way they've accepted that, and I think they've seen the benefits of some of those. It's just a different way of doing it. Personally, though, there's parts I can't say my day is drastically changed, but obviously it's a lot more condensed and occupied in different ways. But as good as that question is, I guess I don't feel like I always give great answers to these. But I think those are questions sometimes I answer better in January or June. Then you kind of really reflect everything that was really going on. And right now you're in the moment of it, and you just keep going, and that's what we do. And you got to find a way to get it done. And I work for a man one time I worked for him for 10 years, and he used to tell us every year, when you're tired, pray for strength. Okay, and so that's what you do this time.
Coach, first game week, what's your message for the student body? Anything you'd like them to know going into Friday?
Well, as far as attending the game, I think is what you're alluding to, in that they have a chance to be impactful. They have a chance to, and hopefully they'll know that they have a chance to be a part of this and help us turn this program around. And them being at the games and being involved and creating a home field advantage, all those things can be impactful. And hopefully it's part of the college experience for a student. And hopefully that's part of the reasons, I remember when I was a Division III coach, I went to recruit a young man, and he politely told me he wasn't interested. And I said, why? And he goes, I want to go to a school whose scores are on the bottom of ESPN. I go, you going to go? He goes, no, I just want to go to school. there and go to the games and have fun. And that's always stuck with me. And now to have a chance to be at a place like the University of Kansas, I would hope there's plenty of students that part of that college experience it starts on Friday night, that they can come with some of their friends, some of the new acquaintances they've met on campus, and be impactful, because just like everyone in our community, our alumni, our fan base, our student body can all have a part in putting this program and where it needs to be. And hopefully we never lose sight of that or lose the appreciation that they'll have.
What have you seen from Colin Grunhard?
Grit, toughness, coachability. He's humble. I love being around the guy. You know, you can build around guys like that. You know, he comes in here, obviously, you know, everyone knows about his father. Everybody knows he's at Notre Dame. I mean, he just comes in like one of the guys each and every day. And, you know, those are the type of guys you want in your program. And he's been versatile. And he's been slowed a little bit, but he, like I say, he's a gritty guy. And I really, you know, appreciate him being here and enjoy having him here.
You mentioned South Dakota played in the spring. What kind of stands out to you about their personnel, maybe their strengths heading into the game?
They got 21 returning starters. They've got all their returning specialists. And one thing through time, and, you know, we want to be there someday, is that when you play long into the regular season, when you go back out in the spring, you have great retention. Okay? And when you have great retention, you keep building upon it. Well, now you got to play 4 games in the spring. What do you think their retention level is right now? So that's the thing. Scores, you know, exclude the scores. They've got everybody coming back, and they get to build upon what they were doing. I've known Bob Nielsen for a long time. Bob was coach at Wisconsin Eau Claire. Then he was at Duluth. Then he was the AD at Duluth, and then he hired himself back as the football coach. Okay, and then he went to Western Illinois. He has been a program builder for a long time, and he does it in an excellent way. They're well coached. Got a couple young quarterbacks that played last year. I didn't watch in the film. I didn't even look the first time to know the guy was a freshman. Now everybody gets the year back, but to see the composure and all the things in a season, and like everybody went through, you know, again, and most of you know, the Missouri Valley Football Conference for an FCS program is an excellent football conference, very competitive, and I went through that. Like I said, and my respect for that whole league is immense. They said when I was at Buffalo, I said, we're not scheduling Missouri Valley School. Okay? I just flat out said, we're not scheduling.
I wanted to ask you about Romello Dotson, just what he's done to impress you guys the past few years.
Very steady, you know, and very true to what Coach Jackson told me when I first got here. He's a pretty laid-back guy, but again, he continues to grow, mature, open up, gain confidence, and all the things. And, you know, he's been very steady. And, again, a lot of those young guys out there, you know, there may be a growing pain or two throughout the year, but I'm really excited to watch them go play and actually get out and get after it.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Beth Welch, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Pickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell for stopping by and talking KU football. Links to his stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, got another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the online version of the Star Sports section. You get all the stories that appear in the print editions of the Star, plus additional stories that appear only on the website. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? Go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. And I wanted to call your attention to something else new. Maybe you know about the Star's e-edition. That's a replica of the printed newspaper on your screen that comes with your digital subscription. Well, now there's an updated sports section produced separately that goes along with it. When you open the e-edition, there's a box in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that, and you can access a sports page that includes all the evening news like Royals results and the baseball games that were played the night before. Spoiler alert, Salvador Perez did not hit a home run last night. So whether it's a sports pass or a full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Thursday with another episode.